Right everyone, Weapon Collector here. Right, I'm going to start a little series on the knives that I'm making for people. So basically, last year people donated 12 quid so that I could buy sets of weed slashers, which I'll show you in a second. And that meant I would have a lot of metal to make swords and knives, and for the 12 quid everyone would get a custom made knife and a sheath. They're all going to be sort of more size type, bushcrafty size type knives for the 12 quid donations. And so I'm going to make a series of making them. And every one of them will be slightly different. And I'm not sure how I'm going to give them out. I may let people pick, I may just decide. But yeah, anyway. So this is a weed slasher. You can get these for, well, at one point they were 3 for 12 quid, which is a really good deal. 4 quid each for those. They're normally about 7 quid each. So I've cut some of these up into blanks. This is one of the blanks here. So this is what I'll be making today. I'll be turning this into a knife. And it's just part of one of those weed slashers. The hardest bit about this is drilling the holes in. So when you do them, if you can incorporate these holes, you don't have to, but yeah, you will have to buy some kind of drill bit that will drill hardened steel, because obviously these are hardened and tempered. And then the only other tip really is when you cut it out, you do want to keep it cool, and then you won't ruin the temper. But you can do it, and it does work. Yeah, you just you can keep running a wet rag over it or dipping it in water. But yeah, so that's the blank. This one's going to have a little guard on it, probably a little mild steel guard. So yeah, I'm going to turn this one into a knife, and then this will be one of the ones that I give to the people who donated. So let's get going, shall we? The first thing I think I'll do is take this paint off, and then we'll start putting the grind on it, the edge, the bevel. I shall be testing out a new product for me. I've not used one of these before. So I can't remember what these are specifically called, but these are for taking off paint. And it is a soft sort of spongy sort of plastic with some kind of abrasive on it. I'll put an annotation to what the name is. And you should be able to take the paint off of weed slashers without scratching the metal, because that's the main issue. What normally happens for me is I scratch the metal and then I can never get those scratches out, and I can get a nice finish on them, but there's always some scratches in. So hopefully one of these will do this really nice. So let's see what happens, shall we? Right, so it's not warm even, and yeah, that will make a lot better finish than anything like that would do, because these are way too rough. They put too much big divots in. In fact, there's a scratch there that it didn't even take out. So yeah, I think that'll work well for being able to get a decent finish on your weed slashers after you get the paint off. Because the paint is really difficult to get off of these. I've tried acetone, loads of different things, and really the only way you can get it off is sanding it off. Right, I'll carry on taking the paint off, and then I can start putting the bevels on. Right, I'm about to do the bevels now. So this is the little jig I made. It's just a piece of aluminium L section, piece of wood on the bottom to tip it forward, so that when you put it against the belt, it creates a bevel, held on with some nuts and bolts. That's it, works really well. Yeah, quite simple, anyone can do that, and I'll just use my little 1-inch belt grinder. So I'm going to put the bevel on now, and to keep this cool I'll just be getting a wet rag and putting it on each time. Right, I've put the very basic bevel on now, So I can now start working on the handle. I'm going to put a guard on this. I'm not sure what kind of guard yet. I may just put a piece on that, just a collar essentially, the same thickness and shape as the handle, but I'm not sure. I'll see how I go. So I need to get a piece of metal anyway and start cutting for the size of the tang. So I'll drill holes and then hammer those out with a screwdriver or a chisel. I'm still undecided what I'm going to do for a guard, but I have marked for the slit. So I shall be drilling where these little marks are, and then I can decide afterwards what I'm going to do. If it's just going to be a collar at the top of the handle or an actual guard sticking out, I don't know yet. So I'm going to put this on the pillar drill, drill those holes out. About as thick as that if I can, but sometimes you can't, it has to be a bit thicker, then there's ways around it, and if you watch my builds you'll find ways of getting around things if you have to do the holes big when you want to. You don't have to use a pillar drill to do these holes. I use a pillar drill because I've got a bad shoulder. It's really hard work for me to use a hand drill nowadays. So I'll use that just because it makes it easier, and the amount of work I'm doing, I can't do anything else the next day if I do. So, right, so these are the holes I've done. They're a little bit bigger than I want, but I'll show you how to compensate for that eventually. So we now need to make them into a slot. There's various ways you can do this. If you've got a file small enough, you can put a file in there and file down, or you can chisel in between. So I say chisel. I use an old flathead screwdriver, and I basically hit and chisel between the drill holes until I knock them out. Be aware you may break your screwdrivers doing this, but you know, this one has the bit going right to the back, so this one works alright. Can't find my hammer now. So. The closer you have the drill holes, the better as well. And if you have one of those, what are those saws? It looks like an angle grinder. It has a saw that just moves like that. They're quite good for this. Not a reciprocating saw, but it's like a vibrating type thing. I can't remember what they're called. We did have one here once, but I don't know what it is now. Okay, so look, that's the start of it. Now I'll turn it over and do the other side. And this is probably just the most basic way you could do this with the simplest of tools. So I'll just carry on, it's nearly done. I just need to knock those bits out. So the guard is on, it was fitting on anyway. I still need to decide what shape I'm going to have it, if it's just going to be straight, is it going to be curved, it will just be a collar essentially. I'll decide that in a minute. But yeah, there's the slot, and that's good enough. As long as that fits on, you can hide it, the top and the bottom, easy, if it looks a bit rough. But this is I'd say the easiest way. The problem is, because these are so thin, trying to get a file that thin into that slot is really difficult. I don't actually even own one that thin, so you just have to hide it essentially. But it doesn't change the integrity of the knife. So let me have a little think about what I'm going to do for a guard. I'm going to look at some pictures and I'll come back. So it's a lovely little basic guard, but it'll do the job. Yeah, I think that's quite nice. Right, so I'm going to put this on the little belt grinder to make it the actual shape I want. So all these corners will be curved over, and then we can start working on the handle. Right, for the handle, I'm going to use this wood that I got from the Wales Preppers meet. It was going to go on a fire, and there was loads of this. There's a proper good finished hardwood that was from a sort of joinery place, but not big enough for them to use. And I said, alright, I could definitely use that for a knife handle. Bloody hell, it's perfect. Look at it. So yes, this is what I'll be using. I don't know what wood it is. You tell me, I can't tell right now. It's a bit dark in here. Yeah, anyway, I'm going to cut the scales now. So they'll basically just be cut to that shape and put on, and I'm going to shape the handle and the scales at the same time. So I'm just going to cut this now. You don't need to see me cut a piece of wood. It'll just literally be cut into a rectangle. Right, so what I've done now is I've put a little bit of leather at the top, and that's been glued on. That becomes sort of part of the guard. That covers up any ugly bits. And now I've glued on one side of the scales, because I find it easier if you glue one on, then drill the holes, and then glue the second one on and drill back through. You'll be able to line the holes up perfectly. So now I just need to drill those two holes and do what I said basically. Right, so I've got both handle scales glued on and drilled the holes. These are for some nails that are going to be used as rivets, so I'll use these nails and a couple of washers on the ends. I'm going to tidy up the ends of the nails because they're a bit rough looking, so I'll just put them on the belt sander and just sort of curve them over. And I might also just recess these a bit, just so the head sits under a little bit. For that, I'm probably just going to use a wood cutting drill bit. And what I mean by that is, hang on, one of these bits, because they will cut a nice sort of flat hole rather than a curved one, if that makes sense. That will cut a hole that shape, that one will cut one the opposite way essentially, but it will mean it'll fit better anyway. I've just very gently pushed it on, just so it just cuts enough that the head can sit in. I'll carry on all four sides. That looks much better, and I'll probably put on a piece of sandpaper. Okay, so I've cut the nails off, so I've just got a little bit sticking out now. This can be peened over. Be careful when you're doing this that you don't go too hard and split the wood. Right, so the scales are on. Now I can start shaping the handle. So I'll basically just shape it in the grinder for some parts, and yeah, to see how I go, I'm just going to do this by eye essentially and just see how I like the look of it. Right, I've done quite a nice little basic handle for this. I just want it, you know, nice and comfortable basically. As I said, all of these are all going to be different anyway, so you know, a lot of them are just testing out to see what will be easier to make in the long run. I've already decided that guards are probably more of a pain in the ass for not doing guards, but I do like a guard on a knife. I just feel safer using them. So some will definitely have guards, but you can finish a knife a lot quicker if you don't have a guard on it. So what I'm going to do now is just finish this up really. So I will varnish the handle, polish up the blade, sharpen the blade, and then probably dye this little bit of leather and just take off the edges of the leather, and then I'll be making a sheath. So you'll probably see me just doing a little bit of finishing touches now, and then we'll start working on a basic sheath for it. I've just taken off the tape just to show you what it looks like. I really like the look of that actually. That's a really nice little knife. Good little utility knife that is, Bushcraft type knife, which is what they're supposed to be. Right, let's finish this off. I'm going to finish this handle with boiled linseed oil. Now, I'll probably regret it because I always hate using that stuff. I always think it doesn't do a very good finish. But, yeah, we'll see. I'm just cleaning this handle at the minute with a bit of nail varnish remover. We'll see. Maybe I just don't know how to put it on properly. But, try with a bit of boiled linseed oil, shall we? See what it comes out like. Oh god. Actually, I might give that one more little sand quickly. Alright, let's give it a go, shall we? I've got enough of the stuff, so hopefully it comes out quite nice. And it'll be a reasonably quick way to finish it as well, which is the other thing I like, because finishes that take ages do my bloody head in, because I just want to get on with it. Okay. I shall look to see what the instructions say, but I think what you do now is let that dry, and then you give it a light sanding, and then you give it another coat. That does look quite nice though. I do like the look of that. That's an alright knife. So let me finish this off. I'll just be dyeing that now. Just be dyeing the leather, and then when we come back I'll be working on the sheath. Right, I'm going to work on the sheath now. So I've got some leather here. I've cut it to the right shape already. I've got a couple of bits to just fill out the gaps so that the blade can fit in. They'll be sewn like that, and then I'll leave this bit till afterwards to work out exactly where I want the little buckle to go, and then I'll stamp a hole and then cut a slit, and that'll be where your belt goes through. It'll be quite a simple sheath. So first thing I need to do is glue these bits on here and then that on there, basically. There are various glues you can use for this. I use wood glue or super glue. There's one issue with both of those glues. If you get them on the front of your leather, it does create issues when you dye it. But you know, there are ways around it. You can just sand that mark off, basically. That's what I do. But yeah, you can get proper what do you call it? Leather glues. I like something that can dry pretty quick. But then saying that, I'm pretty sure the leather glues, they do dry pretty quick. I'm going to have the nice side of the leather on the outer side, so this part here will be a slightly rougher part, but I think it'll look better in the long run. It's one of those things, you just, you know, you pick what you want to do. You can have the rough side out or the better side looking out. And then I will just clamp this together, and in about 20 minutes it should be ready to start marking for the drill holes. Doesn't take long. It will hold well enough by then. And I just use clothes pegs for this. Right, so the sheath has been glued together. I've sanded all the edges so they're nice and level and smooth. I've put a little groove in here for the stitch marks, and I've marked out the stitches. So now I'm going to drill holes all the way through that, and then I'm going to get the little groover and do it again on the other side, because I find you can make them line up better that way. If you do it on both sides, guaranteed they won't be coming out in the same place, but manually you can get it to line up. So yeah, I'll just be now putting this in my pillar drill and basically drilling holes where all those marks are. I probably won't show you that, that's, you know, that's quite self-explanatory what I'll be doing. I'll come back and then I'll start stitching it, and then I can start working on this part. Right, I'm going to sew it up now. I've just doubled over a piece of thread in this with this needle, and I'm just going to be going basically in and out. I'm not doing saddle stitch. I find this works really well. You don't need to. So for the first bit, I'll go through a couple of times just to strengthen that bit up. And I'll do that here, here. So basically here, here and the other side. It'll just add a bit of strength to those areas. Okay. Pull that nice and tight, make sure you don't pull the thread through. And now I'm just going to sew all the way along and then double back on myself, because this will leave little gaps as you go, and then you fill the gaps in. Make sure it's nice and tight. You don't need to put this in a vise, I just find it easier sometimes. To be honest, sometimes it's more awkward because you get catching the bloody thread on stuff, but that's why I've got it in a cloth. The cloth is basically covering up the handle of the vise to stop the thread keep catching on it. This is probably the most laborious bit of this whole entire sheath. Right, I shall carry on stitching. I'll come back when it's fully stitched, and then all we've got to really do is sort this bit out and then dye it. Right, so the sheath is sewn up. I'm now going to mark, well, I have marked where I want to put the belt loop. I'm going to cut this edge off so that it is equal on both sides, if that makes sense. That side is wider than that side, so I'm going to cut a little bit off, put a hole in each of those round bits and make a slot, and then this is going to be the clasp, and this will just be riveted on. I'm not sure where I want it exactly. I might have it quite high up on this one, stop the blade flapping about, so somewhere up here. So somewhere up here we'll have a little clasp that goes around like that. So you probably don't need to see me making a hole there and cutting that off. I'll prepare that and then we'll start doing this bit. This is where we are now. I'm quite happy with that. Got a nice little belt loop there. Got your loop. And it's quite a nice knife. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to dye the leather, which is pretty self-explanatory, and also just tidy up these edges. To do the edges, what you do, you wet the leather and you basically rub it with a piece of wood. You can get tools that are sort of made to do this. Can you now see how smooth that edge is? So I'll go round all of the edges. I've also taken off the edges with a little beveler, one of these tools. You can sand them off. Yeah, then I'll be ready to dye it. And to dye it, I'll just be using Fibings leather dye, which is probably the best stuff you can get, I think. So when I come back, this should be pretty much done. So there it is. Put on the fingerprints on it. Yeah, quite happy with that. Lovely little knife and sheath. And for the people who have donated, I think that's well worth 12 quid. Now, they're not all going to be the same. In fact, there may be lots of variations of these. Some with Kydex sheaths, some with plastic handles. You know, loads of different variations, but yeah, that's the first one. It gives me an idea of what I'm happy making, and yeah, I think that came out really good. I'll do some HD pictures now, and yeah, I'll see you when I make the next one, alright? Cheers for watching. Don't forget to watch the rest of the video. Don't forget to like the video, share it if you know anywhere where people might want to watch this. Definitely subscribe. You can become a member of the channel now as well. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. See you later.